Hi, I'm Kersch, and I work for Brightways Learning. In this Rise Challenge Big Sky video, we're going to have you answer the question, how are you prepared for risk? Now, what is risk? Risk is the possibility that something unpleasant or unwelcome, maybe even dangerous, might happen. So, related to that is the Rise Challenge Big Sky, because Rise Challenge Big Sky is partially funded by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Now, in their strategic plan, they really are about building a culture of preparedness for the nation, so that we are not only prepared, but also a resilient nation. And resilience is about being able to bounce back from adversity. Now, for FEMA, it's all about natural disasters here in the United States. Those natural disasters are things like wildfire, storms, flooding, drought, and tornadoes. You may see them a lot on the news that they come to help after disaster hits. But while you see them after disaster happens, they're especially about being prepared even before disaster happens. They're about being prepared for the risk of disaster happening. So, because they know resilience is really the backbone of that emergency management, that the ability to weather storms and disasters without losing property and life is about being prepared. And mitigation means sustained action to reduce or eliminate that risk that you may have ill effects from things like these natural disasters. But let's start small. Let's start with you. Let's think about, what outdoor activities do you like to do? Or maybe friends or other family like to do? I like to fish. I love to fish. I like to go out in my kayak. I like to go out in a john boat. I like to go out in a sailboat if I can. And there's risk to that, right? Um, and you may like doing skiing or snowboarding or maybe camping or hunting or what else? Think about, what kinds of outdoor activities do you like to do? Now, for this father and his 16-year-old teenage daughter, Kelly, they went on a skiing trip in the Cabinet Mountains earlier in 2021. They thought about risk. They had some gear with them. They had some extra food. They had some water. They probably had a shovel with them. And Dad carried it in his backpack because it was so heavy. Now, they were gone a long time. They left 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They were heading back, still in the mountains, though, and it was starting to get dark, though, because it was winter. Well, turns out Dad accidentally fell over a cliff. He fell almost 2 football fields down a cliff, in fact, and his poor daughter was there on the edge, seeing him down there, and really worried, obviously, and scared. Well, she was able to at least call. They at least had cell phones, and she was able to call him and know that he was hurt but okay. Now, unfortunately, he was all the way down that cliff and she couldn't get to him, and he had all the gear with him except for maybe a little bit of water and food. They were both wet, both probably a little hungry and very exhausted after a long day of skiing in the mountains. But even though she ended up being very hypothermic, and so did he, they did get rescued. However, they didn't have a fire starter with them, and they didn't have a plan for how to get back to the truck. What if they got separated? So they were prepared in some way, and in some ways, not wholly prepared. So it's a lot to think about, and to think about risk. So I'd like you to take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle, if you would. And on the left side of that sheet of paper, I want you to think about, what are the risks for some of your outdoor activities? Like, what is there to be thinking about? Now, don't think about how you're prepared yet. Just think about, what are the risks when you go into your outdoor activities that you like. You might think about weather. Like, what will the weather be like? Is it going to be cold? Might it be cold? What's the forecast? And I don't know, I might get lost. What are some risks that might happen that while you're out doing your favorite activity, go ahead and pause this video while you're making your list, and then start it again when you're ready to move on. All right, so now on the other side of your sheet of paper, we're going to think about how are you prepared to meet those risks or to mitigate those risks. So on the right sheet of paper, now write down, maybe across just from the lines of the risks that you had, how would you prepare for each of those risks? So for weather, would you maybe take a hat, wearing some gloves? Would you take extra water in case it's very hot out and you might be out for a long period of time? Stop this video to write a list of ways you might be prepared and then start again when you're ready to move on. Now that you've thought about how you might be prepared for some of the risks, let's take that a little bigger. Think about your family or maybe extended family and friends, and maybe at your school, maybe your larger community in which you live. What kinds of risks might your community be facing at some point? Now, remember, risk is hard because sometimes you don't always see it and you don't always know it's there. Sometimes you have to investigate. Like, could there be flooding that happens? Could there be wildfire that affects us? There's all kinds of things to investigate that may not be obvious at first. And then, in addition to that risk, how is the community that you're looking at prepared for that possibility of something happening? Think about how you might investigate that and what questions you might ask. How might you go about finding out those answers? That's it for now.